We got a fun Patriots Today on tap for all of you here. I am Nic Rohloff because we are going to be looking at some NFL draft prospects the New England Patriots could be targeting before the 2024 NFL Scouting Combine gets officially underway on Wednesday with edges and D linemen, specifically 32 prospects named on this episode. And before we jump into those prospects, I think it's very important to just look in the mirror and say, what are the biggest positions of need surrounding the New England Patriots? Well, number one clearly is the quarterback position. Where do they go with that? They have the third overall pick. Could they take a quarterback? Could they trade out of that? I think it's a 2A, 2B situation when you look at the rest of this roster for New England. I think the 2A is the wide receiver spot. They just need more weapons. They need to get more explosive. That has been very, very evident over the past 3 seasons, ever since Mac Jones became the QB for the Patriots. 2B is that left tackle spot, offensive tackle. Michael Onwenu and Trent Brown are both free agents. Eliot Wolf said today at the Combine when he had an interview that they'd like to bring back Onwenu. Didn't really say the same for Trent Brown, so left tackle is a position of need. And then looking at the safety spot, Josh Uche could be hitting the open market. Probably need to replace him at the edge spot. And then if Kyle Duggar hits that free agency market and lands elsewhere, well, safety's on the list of positions of need as well. So let's start off with looking at the 2 quarterbacks New England could be selecting with the 3rd overall pick. Potential, obviously. Depends on which one falls. Drake Maye and Jayden Daniels, one of them will be there. This is a matter of if Eliot Wolf in New England likes one of the 2, if any, if we're going to be honest. Both of them have been terrific over the past 2 years at the collegiate level. Jayden Daniels obviously winning the Heisman Award this past season, just absolutely lighting up the SEC. Drake Maye, though, 2-year starter in Chapel Hill for the Tar Heels, and he just did nothing but put up numbers and showcase raw talent from the arm situation and his legs as well. 16 rushing touchdowns. He's no slouch when it comes to athletic mobility. He can do it all. The best thrower over the middle of the field, in my opinion, in this draft class, 6'4", 6'5", 230. Drake Maye has it all, but then you've got the flashiness, the athleticism, the ability to go run for 1,000 yards in a season that Jayden Daniels possesses, as well as having a very high touchdown to turnover ratio. He just did not turn the ball over. And when you look at these 2 quarterbacks, there's pros and cons to both, right? Jayden Daniels, obviously the more productive quarterback over the past 2 years. He had the better 2023 season at that college level. But Drake Maye, he showcases all of the traits and potential that you are projecting to be a top 5 quarterback. Can Jayden Daniels be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL? I believe he can, but can he crack that top 5 like Drake Maye shows as that being a possibility? I'm not sure. There's pros and cons to both these guys. It's just all up to Eliot Wolf, Matt Groh, and Jerod Mayo looking to see if they want to go quarterback and which one they like over the other. So it brings me to this question. Pick a quarterback for me, because Caleb Williams is out of the discussion. That just simply will not happen. Do you prefer Drake Maye? Do you prefer Jayden Daniels? Everybody has a let's just say, opinion on both these guys. Which one do you like more? Show it for me down in the comment section. All right, Marvin Harrison Jr., a wide receiver here out of Ohio State. And I want to group these 3 together here because to me, if the Patriots are picking at the number 3 spot and they're not trading down, it should be and will be one of these 3 guys. Marvin Harrison Jr. is the clear-cut number 1 wide receiver prospect in this draft class. And I would argue he's probably the best wide receiver prospect in the past decade. And you could go back all the way to Julio Jones when he was coming out of Alabama. But if New England does want to trade down, I think these 2 are going to be heavily considered. Malik Nabers out of LSU and Odunze out of Washington. Now, it's very possible that this draft goes quarterback, 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 wide receiver, wide receiver, wide receiver. So if the New England Patriots trade down, it's a matter of where they would trade down. If they trade with the Giants potentially at number 6, well, you could see one of these wide receivers fly off the board at 6 to New England. And trust me, These guys would all be uberly talented and be the wide receiver for New England. Wide receiver one, that is. Nabers just had a terrific 2023 season, but you can't slouch anything that Odunze did either, obviously helping the Washington Huskies get to the national title game. 1,600 yards, 13 touchdowns. All three of these guys would be wide receiver ones right away for the New England Patriots. They all possess the ability to be that X wide receiver on the outside, go make some plays at the contested catch point, but also route running are being showcased at the highest level over the middle of the field. Literally any route tree you could think of, all three of these guys can run it and also play that contested catch guy. They are demons inside the red zone. They would be fantastic for any quarterback that plays for the New England Patriots. More prospects to get to, but I want to make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel because we put out daily Patriots content on the NFL draft and free agency. Earlier today, we brought you all a video with that Eliot Wolf interview. We were going to continue to have you covered on the latest coming out of the NFL Combine surrounding the New England Patriots. So hit that sub button right now, officially 500 away from 9K. All right, I want to highlight these two guys as well as potential first-round draft targets for New England if they traded down as well. It's not just wide receivers. There's two offensive tackles that can fill in at that left tackle spot for New England and potentially be franchise left tackles for the next 10 years. Olu Fashanu out of Penn State and Joe Alt for Notre Dame. They both have their pros and cons as well. Joe Alt had one of the most flawless offensive tackle seasons in recent memory when it comes to college football. I don't want to hold Pro Football Focus on a pedestal, but the way he's graded out is otherworldly. 90.7 overall, 91.2 pass blocking grade, 86.5 run blocking grade, while only allowing 1 sack. But if you look at the flip side and look at Olu Fashanu's season at Penn State, well, yes, he regressed a little bit in terms of his Pro Football Focus grades from 2022 because he could have came out of the draft last season and been a pick inside the top 10, elected to come back, didn't really improve that much, didn't really decline either, but he has been labeled as maybe the best pass blocking left tackle prospect in the last decade. That's how good Olu Fashanu is. When you look at Alt, he might be one of the guys that is more complete when you look in terms of run blocking and pass blocking. But if you're just looking at being that blindside protector for a right-handed quarterback, Olu Fashanu is the best in this draft class. You could not go wrong drafting either of these guys if you traded down and drafted one of them in that 7 to 11 range if New England did elect to go that route. We're going to start looking at some second-round targets as well as third-round targets. We're going deep in our bag today, but I got to show some love to Prize Picks before we do that. The #1 daily fantasy sports app in North America, and you can get a first deposit match up to $100 when you go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS. Football season, well, it might be over, but the action on the floor is heating up. Whether it's tournament season or the fight for playoff home court, there's no shortage of high-stakes basketball moments this time of year. Get on the excitement with Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app, where you can turn your hoops knowledge into some serious cash. One thing I also like about them, you could play alongside some celebrities. Meek Mill, Sugar Sean O'Malley. Just go to the Prize Picks community plays under the promos tab, and you could see the entries they are playing out on a daily basis. I will not have my picks featured on the community tab, although they should be because they're absolutely locks. I'm looking at the MLB season for the upcoming year as we're just about a month away from getting underway. I'm taking Pete Alonso more than 42.5 home runs. I'll also go with the less than on Mookie Betts' 32.5 homers. I think Pete's going to mash the ball, and Mookie, well, should have never left Boston. But Boston should have also paid him. You could take these picks. You could go elsewhere, but just play Prize Picks, the best app on the market for daily fantasy sports. Download the app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. All right, let's look at the second round as New England has the 34th pick in the draft as we currently sit. Troy Fautanu, the offensive lineman from Washington, he could be someone who gets projected as a guard in the National Football League, but he is very, very good. He dominated on that Husky offensive line this past year. He probably will go in that 20s range. I wouldn't be surprised if he wasn't there at 34, but I wanted to label out Fautanu. Same could be said for Graham Barton, the offensive lineman for Duke. Likely another prospect going late in that first round, as a lot of teams are always looking for offensive linemen to beef up that line. But if Graham Barton or Fashanu were there at 34, it'd be hard to pass up on any of them as long as you are not signing someone to be that left tackle of the future. If we shift to the wide receiver position, we have to name Ladd McConkey, the Georgia Bulldog wide receiver. He is as good as a route runner as you can possibly find in this draft class. The only question is with McConkey is what would he be on this Patriots roster? You have the second-year guy out of Liberty, Mayo Douglas, who can play inside as that slot wide receiver. Would McConkey take away from that? Can McConkey play on the outside alongside Mayo Douglas? That's the question we would have to ask ourselves when it comes to Mr. McConkey. Another wide receiver that can certainly play outside and is probably my number one wide receiver target at pick number 34 for New England, Adonai Mitchell, the wide receiver out of Texas. His fluidity is something just jumps off the page when you watch his tape. Alongside his speed and frame, he can run by you. He can make you miss with his shifty route running ability. I'm a big fan of Mitchell. If he's there at 34, and you are confident in finding another offensive tackle later in the draft, it's going to be hard for me to pass up on Adonai Mitchell. Another wide receiver, Keon Coleman, who originally was getting top 10 buzz in this NFL draft when you go back to November and December, but a lot of people have cooled on him. I was always out on Keon Coleman, by the way, because he didn't really showcase the ability to me to make you miss. Gave me a lot of Devontae Parker vibes. I hate to use that comp, but he's 6'4", 6'5", someone who really dominated at the contested catch point at the collegiate level, not sold on his route running ability, and when you get to the NFL, not sure if he's going to be able to consistently beat NFL DBs at that contested catch point, but Keon Coleman, someone to keep your eyes out on. Before we get to the third-round targets, I just got to name some other guys as well. Jordan Morgan, an offensive tackle from Arizona. I'm a big fan of him. Kingsley Suamatia, the offensive tackle out of BYU, is an intriguing name. Jatavion Sanders, probably not someone who the New England Patriots would take at 34, but Sanders, if the Patriots traded back in the second round or traded back from the third round into the second round to use another second round pick, or just gathered more assets, I'd love Sanders in the middle, like 40s range, 45 in this draft. He's big, he's versatile, and the Patriots definitely have to fill that tight end spot as Hunter Henry, Mike Gesicki, and Pharaoh Brown are all free agents. Michael Penix Jr., if New England elects to trade back or takes a wide receiver at 3, maybe they look at the lefty from Washington at pick 34. And then Chris Braswell, the edge from Alabama. Defensive linemen from the Crimson Tide usually work out, and there's a history of New England taking them. Could Braswell be an option? I think he would be someone New England has their eyes on. Before we get to the third round, I do want to ask you guys this. Who is your sleeper NFL draft target? Maybe it's someone in the third round. Maybe it's a guy named that's in the second round. I don't want to hear anybody that could be going at number 3 or in the first round in New England. I want to hear the second and third round guys y'all have your eyes on. Let me know down below. A guy that I expect to see a lot of people say, if we're going to be honest, Roman Wilson, the wide receiver from Michigan. He absolutely tore up the Senior Bowl, and his stock is just on the rise. If he has another good week at the Combine, he can start elevating himself to that second-round range. But I think it's possible New England could get him at that 68 pick range that they have right now in the third round. If they go quarterback, offensive tackle, wide receiver, I'd love Roman Wilson to be that third-round guy. Javon Bullard, the safety from Georgia, could be a Kyle Duggar replacement if New England cannot re-sign him. I do expect the Patriots to have Duggar back, though. I think they will refrain from using the franchise tag and just give him a 3-year deal at maybe $14, $15 million annually. I think Eliot Wolf and Jerod Mayo is going to make a solid point to keep their homegrown talent that are actually good in the building, like Onwenu and Duggar. But if Duggar slips through the cracks, I look at Bullard. Ricky Purcell, the wide receiver from Florida. Now, this is an intriguing name, by the way, because if the Patriots drafted Jayden Daniels with the 3rd overall pick, well, they could have a reunion because Ricky and Jayden actually played together when they were at Arizona State as Sun Devils. They both transferred to the SEC, going their separate ways, but if they went Daniels, offensive tackle, and Ricky Purcell, that'd be intriguing to me. Patrick Paul, someone who not a lot of people know where he can go. A lot of people think he could go in the second round. But PFF on their big board have him as the 80th ranked prospect. I would think it's somewhere in the middle, closer to that 60 range, maybe even in the 50s. I'm a fan of Patrick Paul. I think he could be a late second round pick. But if he slips to that third round, early third round for New England, ooh boy, I'd love to pick him up. Braylon Trice, the edge from Washington, another guy where let's just go away from offense for a bit here and look at defense. Trice just absolutely jumps off the charts when you look at his productivity for the Washington Huskies. He's always in the right spot, right time. I'm curious to see how he does at the Combine because he could really elevate his stock, but as of now, he is someone New England could look at in the third round. 10 names here that could also be found for New England. A lot of wide receivers that could go at 68 for the Patriots. Xavier Worthy, Jalen McMillan, who has been comped to Jacoby Myers by our own Evan Lazar, by the way. The other Husky wide receiver, Jalen Polk, Devontae Walker, the speedy wide receiver out of North Carolina, who I don't have a lot of belief in, but if you take Drake Maye, it wouldn't hurt to bring in two Tar Heels that already have a connection together. Xavier Legette, the wide receiver from South Carolina. Jerry Rice's nephew, I believe. I don't know if it's a son. Might be mistaken here. Brendan Rice, the wide receiver out of USC. Blake Fisher and Big K, the the O-tackle from Yale, is an interesting guy to keep your eye on. Gabriel Murphy, the edge out of UCLA. And the last name I'll mention, which is fascinating, is Cameron Kinchens, because as y'all know, when the Patriots brought over Alonzo Highsmith to join this front office from the University of Miami, he has a lot of ties to the Hurricanes as their de facto GM at the collegiate level, so he will know Kinchens on a personal level, know what his strengths, his weaknesses are, and if, like I said, if Kyle Duggar leaves, I think Kinchens can absolutely be someone in play to be his replacement in the third round. Before we head out of here, though, I do want to mention, I expect a lot of offense in the NFL draft. You might ask me, why do I think that? Well, it's because if you look at the free agency market, a lot of the top offensive guys are likely going to be tagged or re-signed with their team, which allows New England, who has the second most cap space in the NFL right now, can jump up to number one if they cut J.C. Jackson and save $14 million. Well, they need to upgrade their offense, but if there's not a lot of free agents out there that they can give that money to, maybe they just go looking to fortify the defense and then get younger offensively and use the draft and their draft assets to just overhaul this offense with a young corner or a young quarterback, a young OT, a young wide receiver, and let's roll with those three and Demario Douglas. So if you're asking my opinion, I think it's going to be a lot of offense in the draft, and in free agency, you'll see some offensive guys, but a lot of fortification on that defensive end. All right, that'll do it for today's video. I will be back on Patriots Today for another video tomorrow. Make sure you subscribe because we're going to update you on the latest Patriots news and rumors, and we have clips and interviews coming from the NFL Combine as we have a bunch of people down there from Chat Sports. So hit that sub button, and you don't miss a thing here at Patriots Today.